we've really opted to move from being a gold miner to being a factory, a gold factory. And this really seems to be paying off.
Well, we have a resource of 11 million ounces, consolidated resource of 11 million ounces. If we process that at the rate of efficiency of the technology that we're now using and that we'll be implementing, that's just about half of that will come out. So how much is that? It's 5.5 million ounces of gold that we have access to through infrastructure and with the technology that we are currently using, 5.5 million ounces. We're targeting between 140 and 150,000 ounces per year. So there's plenty of time and plenty of resources over the next few decades to mine. Our life of mine plan, on which we base our numbers and our capital reinvestment strategy and so forth, is limited to 10 years. But as you could see, with the amount of tailings in and around Johannesburg and the gold in those tailings, there's definitely scope for this model to be extended for many, many years. With this infrastructure, with the volume capacity, with the access to water, with a large tailings deposition facility where we can deposit our 2 million tons of residue material per month. I think the circumference of that tailings dam is close to 30 kilometers. These are the things that give us genuine access to the remaining 11 million ounces on surface. And what we'll be doing, first step, now that the integration has been done, is invest in our fine grind circuit. It's existing technology that we can now apply also in the gold mining industry. And what it basically boils down to is the following. Is our extraction efficiencies have not been much higher than about 38%, touching 40%. It's now actually going slightly higher now that the marginally higher grade material from the West Rand is being pumped into the circuit. But what we found was that about 40% of the gold that does not respond to our metallurgical circuit is encapsulated in higher fraction pyrites. So the gold comes in the one end and it just leaves the other end, and it doesn't respond to the metallurgical process. Now, our engineers have figured out how to pull those bigger fraction pyrites out of the run-of-mine, out of the flow of material, and bring it into a concentrate that contains about 90% of all of those higher fraction pyrites. And that is by simple flotation technology. So 90% of the material that came in, went out, and just carried gold in and back out again will now be pulled off into a concentrate or a mass pull of roughly 4 to 5%. That then goes into a fine grind circuit. It's milling technology that the platinum mines have been using for a long period of time very successfully. Goes into a milling circuit. It gets milled to an ultra fine fraction for about 45 minutes to an hour. And we've in fact designed this to have a bit of surge capacity, extra capacity, if we were to push up the volume flows in this circuit as well. And that then liberates those gold particles that were previously invisible to cyanide. So it becomes soluble. Stick it back into the CIL circuit, and these gold particles dissolve into the normal solution. And that, we believe, can push up our gold production by between 16 and 20%. We're the biggest gold treatment facility of this nature in the world. It's an ultra volume environment, so you've got to make absolutely sure that your volume flow is such that that you take enough gold into the circuit. We believe that with a gold price where it's currently trending, and with this technology improvement, our cutoff grade could be as low as 0.22 gram a ton. That's less than a quarter of a gram of gold per ton of material treated. Now, up until recently, those were the sort of the values of the tailings that we put onto these tailings dams. Those uranium grades are quite attractive. RPM's uranium grades are quite attractive, and that can also introduce an interesting dynamic.
There's a huge environmental aspect to this. I mean, you're cleaning up a valuable piece of real estate. How big is that real estate, and when will you be sort of off the area so that development can take place?
Up until now, most of the sites that we've been clearing are sites that belong to property companies. In 20, 30 years ago, when this whole structure was set up, the property upside was moved into one asset or one entity, and the mining upside moved into another, into Crown. We're now starting to clear more of our own sites. We recently cleared the Top Star site, which is right there in the center of town, and it's something that could offer a bit of upside, which makes the modeling also quite interesting, because it's almost like an annuity. You've got your steady income, and then you have a bit of a balloon right at the end when you bring in almost windfall upside through the disposal of those sites. Many of the sites that we'll be clearing in the far east rand, like ERPM, those are sites that in fact do belong to us. We're talking about 200-300 hectares of land that increasingly will become available for development. So yes, there's definitely some property upside. Insofar as the environmental aspect is concerned, many of these old mine dumps are in the lower lying areas because they're very old. They were started hundreds or decades ago, 100 years and more. 120 years ago was when ERPM started out, and obviously you took the mine tailings to where it was the easiest with the donkeys and the carts and so forth that they used in those days. So many of the wetlands have been contaminated by these, and some of the natural natural flow of water has been interfered with as well in some of these areas. Now, we're not branding ourselves as an environmental cleanup company, but I think there's certainly a bit of upside in the sense that when we do clear these sites, adequate provision is made to clean the site up and also to restore it to a condition where you can either have development or if it's a wetland area where the wetland can re-establish itself. So yes, there is environmental upside. And of course the site that we've got now, where all of our tailings are being transported to, that is a world-class site that is very carefully monitored. The whole thing has been cladded with topsoil, so very little dust comes off the site. And ultimately, I think it would be good to have moved most of the remnants of the mine dumps in and around Johannesburg towards that site.